If you've ever got to the end of the month or the end of the year and you know you've worked hard, you've pushed yourself, you've pushed your team, you've got all the work done, and you look at your bank accounts and you're thinking, where did all my profit go? Then this video is for you. G'day, if we haven't already met, Terence here from Building Profit. I've realized that there are way too many builders, trades, and service business owners who are struggling to grow a profitable and sustainable business that's more than just a job. So I've started developing some free resources just like this so that you don't have to be one of them. Two things I really want to go through with you today. The first one is, what is the difference between markup and margin? How do you know the concept and understand the concept so well that you could literally teach someone else how to do it? Secondly, why do margins actually matter for your business? Once you start to understand this, it can really change the way that you approach your business, and it can drastically change the amount of profit that's actually left for you at the end of the month or at the end of the year. So let's get started. So what I've got for you here is a quick presentation just to show you the difference, and then we'll go into some spreadsheets. We'll make them exciting, I guarantee. If we have a look at a product, for instance, okay, and we say this product costs you $8,000 to deliver. In other words, you're paying for materials, you're paying for any subcontractors, and it costs you $8,000 to pay for all of that stuff and all of those people. And then we go and put a 25% markup on that product. Well, 25% of $8,000, $2,000. So we're putting $2,000 on the top of that, and this is our markup. And the reason it's called markup is because we're marking up the original cost price. We're working forwards from the cost and we're marking it up by 25%. To find a margin, if we have a look at that exact same product, all we're doing is we're looking at the entire the sale price. So instead of working forwards from the $8,000 cost price, we know that we're selling the product for $10,000 and we work backwards from there. And then we look at how much margin we actually have in that product. And I'm sure you've already calculated, it's 20% margin. In other words, if we look at the sale price of $10,000, $2,000 is 20% of the sale price. So we're just calculating it slightly differently. Let me give you a couple more examples, and by the end of this, I'm sure that you'll understand it so well you can teach it. Margin is when we're working backwards from the sale price. So we're simply looking at the price that we're selling it for, and we're working backwards from there to calculate the margin. If we have a look at another product and we say it's exactly the same cost price, but this time we're going to put a bit more of a markup on it. And we've got a 50% markup. So that's $4,000. We're selling it for $12,000. Well, if we have a look at the same product and we look at the margin when we work backwards from the sale price, well, that $4,000 markup is actually, or that 50% markup is actually a 33.333% margin. As you can see, it's working forwards from the cost price, which is markup, and margin is working backwards from the sell price. When you think about it, $4,000 is exactly 1/3 of the $12,000 sell price, which is a really simple way to think about it, which tells you why it's a 33.333% margin. One more example, hopefully by now you've totally got it. What happens if we take that same product and we put 100% markup on it? Well, that essentially means that it's cost us $8,000 and we're selling it for $16,000 because we're adding an extra $8,000 to it. Again, it simply means that we're marking it up by 100%, which means that we're actually doubling the price. Now, 100% markup, of course, is not 100% margin. 100% markup, when we look at it from a margin point of view, is actually only 50%. In other words, the margin, if we're selling this product for $16,000, we've got $8,000 worth of margin in it, that's 50% of the total price. You'll also notice that as the percentage values get bigger, so say for instance 25% markup gives you a 20% margin, 50% markup gives you a 33% margin, you can see that the gap gets bigger as well. You can see by the time you get to 100% markup, that's only a 50% margin, and it gets bigger as you go. So that's the simplest explanation that I can give you in terms of how to understand the difference between markup and margin. Now let's get to the point of this video. Why is it so important to understand your margins? And for that, I'm going to use another model in a spreadsheet that we call the margin model. So here's an example of a business doing $1 million in revenue. Across all of its products and services, we're making about a 20% gross profit margin, and all the operating expenses for the business come to about 15%. So if we look at an example like that, we get something that looks like this. That's $1 million in revenue in total. $800,000 of that $1 million in revenue goes to cost of goods sold. That is our materials, our subcontractors, all that type of stuff. $150,000 of that $1 million goes to paying expenses, our operating expenses. That leaves us with about $50,000 in net profit. So there are actually only two ways to increase your gross profit margin. One is to put up your prices, and the other one is to reduce your costs. What we've got here is a few different variables that we can put in to make those adjustments to see what effect they actually have in this particular scenario. So let's just say that we could increase our prices by just 5%. Doesn't seem like a lot, but let's put that in. What we can see instantly is the effect that will have on this business. So you can see in this column here that there's the before, which shows us exactly what it was like before, and now there's the after column. Okay, and in the after column, what it's telling us is that we've increased our revenue, our overall revenue, by $50,000. We've increased our gross profit margin to 23.8% in this case, and what we've done is we've kept the cost of goods sold and the operating expenses at the same dollar value. What we're saying here is that the cost of sales, the cost of your materials and your subcontractors are not going to go up just because you put your pricing up by 5%. So when we look at this now, what we actually see is that we've still got $800,000 cost of goods sold. We've still got $150,000 in operating expenses, but now we've got $100,000 in net profit. And what you can see is that means we've added $50,000 to net profit. What it really means is we've doubled our net profit, or a 5% increase in prices. It's given us a 100% increase in that net profit, or 2x, as we can see there. So the most common question I get when I'm going through this exercise with clients is, how do I increase, like this is all great, this all makes sense now, but how do I increase my pricing? Because maybe my clients won't pay for it, or the market that I'm in, it's just really, really price driven, or everybody wants the lowest price. That is really a question that I'll answer in another video or another series of videos, because there's a lot to unpack there. What I can say to you is that there are lots of different ways to look at increasing your pricing, increasing the value of your offer, increasing the perceived value from the point of view of your clients. There are all sorts of things that you can do. So what I will say for now is, let's just say that it is possible, and I'll do a series of videos just to unpack maybe some ideas and some insights, things that you can do that will help you to increase the perceived value of what you do and increase your pricing as a result. Now, let's just say, for argument's sake, that we could lift our pricing even more. We could increase our pricing even more than 5%. And let's just say we could increase our prices by 10%. So by increasing our prices by 10%, what we've actually got now, you can see this was the before, and in comparison to that, we've got an overall revenue of $1.1 million. We're still paying exactly the same amount for cost of goods sold. We're still paying exactly the same amount for expenses. That's $800,000 cost of goods sold, $150,000 for expenses. But what you can actually see now is that the profit, the net profit that's left over, is now $150,000. And that is, we've added an extra $100,000 to net profit, an increase of 200%, or the easiest way to put it is we've literally tripled the net profit in this particular business just by increasing prices by 10%. So I just want to go through one more option with you, and that is, what would happen if we just left our price increase at 5%, but we decreased our cost of goods by 5% as well? In other words, we did the jobs more efficiently, we used less subcontract labor, we found better pricing on our materials, all that type of stuff. And by doing that, what we'll actually find is a very similar result to putting our prices up 10%. In fact, it's slightly better just because of the way that the numbers work. And what we've done again is pretty much tripled. In fact, in this case, we've more than tripled the value of our net profit at the end of it all. So our cost of goods sold gone down to less than $750,000. Expenses have remained the same because we haven't adjusted those. And our net profit is up to $152,500. All of that just by making a couple of tweaks in the business. So if you found this video really helpful, I'd love you to like it and maybe share it with someone who could really benefit from understanding the content that's in it, understanding the difference between markup and margin, and why it's actually important when you're applying it to an entire business. As I like to say, to your success.